What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the process of becoming. My name is Dino,
This is Josh.
and we're finally back together after a long awaited uh, period of time. Let's just put it that way. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while. Josh has clearly, cheated on me and just gone solo. He's like a single dad for a minute there, which is weird, dude. I'm a little disappointed, but it's okay. But we're back together, so that's all that matters. I'm like a side piece now, so I'll take the role that I get. But dude, it's been a minute, man. How's everything going? How are you? Let's catch up a little bit because it's been a while. It's been a while for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I've been good, man. And I think it's important to note, I think everybody out there already knows it, but like podcasting is not our sole venture. We both got a ton going on, but really the goal is to continuously bring you guys value. So that's why I cheated on you. I was like, all right, I know Dino's got a lot going on. You were traveling, you went out to Jaime's wedding and stuff. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do something, whether it's a solo. The one with Jenna just happened to be opportunistic because she was surprisingly in at HQ. So, I'm just doing my best to bring people value, man. It's like
I
this
love it,
dude's
man.
over here traveling the world, getting promotions, all kinds of other stuff. So,
Well, I appreciate that, man. Hey,
yeah,
I'm just kidding. You guys know this. I mean that you are right though. I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up, like because especially when you see other podcasters that have been doing this for so long, like that's where it becomes their sole focus. So they're scheduling all the time. They're spending time together because that's like essentially their main goal, main job. Eventually, maybe that's what it'd be, but yeah, no, man, I'm not. I'm not mad.
yeah, yeah.
But
Well, we're going to have a good lineup. We were talking before we started recording. We got a good lineup of some special guests that we want to make sure we have on. I actually thought of another one that we didn't bring up in that has we've been both talking about getting on the podcast for a long time. He keeps busting my balls about it, so I'm like, all right, let's do it. So yeah, there's going to be some different adventures coming up, but like I said, we're going to bring you guys value no matter what, and freaking figure it out.
yeah, I mean, we figured it out. I mean, kind of
Yeah,
like how this whole podcast started. It
yeah,
literally started what 2 days after we talked, something like that. We didn't even
yeah.
we run GarageBand, guys. If for reference, GarageBand is not you know it's a good decent starting place, but it's not where we're at now, which is a lot nicer. We got to pay a little bit more. That's
Yeah.
part of it,
Well,
but
we had less issues with GarageBand too, other than the
we
audio.
did. Yeah, we did. That's true.
It,
But yeah,
it,
I actually excited about some of the guests that we're talking about bringing on, and it's gonna be cool because each one of them are gonna have their own story in their own different way, but all of it relates back to like what we talk about is the mindset, right? Like becoming a better version of yourself in whatever category it is. Some of you guys are going to relate a lot to these people. Some maybe you won't relate exactly to every part of their story, but you're going to relate to a lot of the challenges and the things they kind of have to go through to get to where they're at. So it's pretty cool. So I'm excited for you guys to like be able to see some of the people we're going to have on. I'm not going to throw out any names because I also don't want to jinx it, because that's what always happens, right? You're like, oh, we're going to have all these people on, and then it never happens, and then you're like, damn it, sorry guys.
I mean, Donald Trump. I have a call into him, but I haven't heard back.
Got
So
it, got it. Yeah. He'll get back. He'll get back. We'll
yeah,
get.
well, fill us
You,
in, man. You've had some exciting, good stuff happen since we've been on together. So
yeah, man. Actually, before I get that, you mentioned Donald Trump, and there's something I want to blow your mind with. I don't actually know if you know this, and I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a book in the 1889 or 1860 or 86 or something like that. It's called okay, I don't know the exact title, but it's called something with Baron Trump.
okay,
Okay. Do you know this? I don't know
yeah,
if you know this. Okay.
yeah,
And apparently Donald Trump's, family, like, so whenever like Nikola Tesla, like he had so much work, he had all these different, things that he thought about, like electricity, time travel, like all these different things. And Trump's family was actually, I forgot whether it was his like grandfather, great great grandfather, someone in his bloodline was actually sent to go basically grab that work or find that work or bring that work in. And I think that 4 out of the 26 pieces of the work was found or brought in or whatever. So there's a lot still missing. But it's kind of funny when you think about that book, Baron Trump, and you think about the Trump family literally was the one sent to acquire that. Just a little conspiracy theory out there for you. It's freaking wild. Apparently, I think Elon is mentioned in that book too. Not Elon Musk, but it's pretty wild, dude. So time travel, I don't know how true that is, but I think there's some shit there.
Yeah, it's the marvelous journey, Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey,
Yeah,
or
I
something
think
like
that's
that.
what it's called, right? It's
Yeah,
like a little kid on the book cover or something, right?
yeah, Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey.
Pretty freaking insane, dude. And it's
Yeah,
I think the book's about like that kid saving the world or like something. I don't know. It's very interesting, dude.
yeah.
It's very interesting. Time
Well,
is
like a lot of it stems from like the whole idea of Nikola Tesla. It was like they Trump's family was somehow related to him or something, and then Trump's grandfather was the one that inherited all the stuff, and then
yeah,
basically like yeah, supposedly figured out time travel based on all of that. Which
yeah,
when you like actually look at what Nikola Tesla did, I mean, we actually teach off of quite a few of his key principles, which is like, hey, if you want to understand and unlock the secrets of the universe, pay attention to frequencies. What
that's
does he
true.
say? Frequencies and something else. But I mean, a lot of stuff that he was teaching on, again, there's a reason why all of his stuff was burned to the ground and suppressed because, hey, they're still suppressing that type of stuff and they still say that it's cuckoo and insane. So there's a lot of there. I mean, there could be truth to a lot of that.
Yeah, I think there is, man. I mean, like our guy Dr. Joe Dispenza always talks about, life is
Mhm.
energy, man.
Yeah, that's it.
Life is
Everything's
energy.
energy. Yeah. Well, get us up to speed, man. You've had
Yeah,
some pretty freaking cool adventures since you've been out in Colorado and you've been kicking ass, taking names, living
yeah.
by a set of standards and core values. What's it been doing for you?
Honestly, man, it's been pretty good. I want to say so. Most of you guys know I started working at a supplement store nearby. Supplement Giant is the name of the store, and it's been about 3.5 months, 4 months now, and I am officially running one of the stores. So it's a pretty cool, big deal. And it happened so fast. And like to Josh's point, it's like, man, I honestly just did the same things that I've done since being at First Form, since I've learned being at First Form, and it's all the stuff we talk about, and it's cool to see it work in even different areas, right? Because like I've been part of First Form for like almost 6 years at the time, and I came right out of college, got into it, and it's not like I had different other areas of my life that I was doing that at the time, but I applied the same concepts that I've learned that I've brought in there, and man, it was cool just to see it all work out, and it's funny because it's a lot of the things we've always known, but it's different when it's like new and fresh. It's kind of like coming out with a new piece of art. You have one that you're working on and it's great, and then you start a new one, you feel like you're starting from scratch. But then you apply the same things, the same, principles, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it's cool to see it work. And so that's pretty much one of the biggest things I gotta say. Outside of that, though, and we talked about this, Josh, but and honestly, you guys, I like to be real here too because I think most of obviously whenever we get on the podcast, we talk about lessons, values, things that we learn, things to help you out. But we're not prone to, or we are also prone to the struggles and challenges that come with life, right? So most of you guys probably haven't seen. I haven't been on social media too much. In fact, I've actually still been struggling with a lot of my back thing, my lower back, sciatica, and mentally it's been tough, right? Because no trick shots, no training like I used to, and you're taking out like 70% of my life, right? Like the things that I used to do, and man, it's been challenging, and the biggest thing I've tried to do is apply the same concepts we do here, and it's definitely helped. I've taken steps towards it. The back is slowly getting better. I mean, I got probably 3 more months before I can start to see like a full progress report on that where it's like, okay, we're heading into the area where I can train again, do trick shots again. Man, because I love trick shots, I love soccer, I love training. And it's funny because we get on this podcast and we talk about mindset, we talk about positivity, we talk about all these things that help your life. And it's been a struggle for me because there's a lot of things that I haven't been able to do or I've been struggling to do. And so getting on and like talking to you guys, like you kind of feel like an imposter, right? And it's something we've talked about, and so I've been through these stages, but again, it's like I signed up for this journey. I didn't expect it to come out the way that it did at the time that it did. But like I said, I've been taking steps for it. So I started working with this company called Rehab Fix, which they're essentially they're like PT based, but like specifically for the lower back. So I started a 3 month program with them. So I'm excited to finally get cleared. But outside of that, guys, it's been positives and negatives, and just trying to ride the waves. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at, Josh, man. You know, good things, bad things, all of it. But I'm so grateful for it, dude. And like I said, I've signed up for this. And you know this, man. Me and you have talked about this, but I've said this a lot of times. When I come out here, I was like, I know there's going to be challenges. I know that this is part of the journey, and I need to go do this. And it's taught me a whole bunch of things, you know. And again, the cool part is being able to apply the things that we talk about all the time and seeing that work, even though it's very, very slow. And I hope that relates to a lot of you guys too. You know, it's like sometimes you'll be at your peak, you'll be great things are coming, then you hit those little, you know, downhill, you know, you hit the valley, right? And at the valley, it's like you just got to keep doing the same thing that you were doing before. It just might look a little bit different, and it takes time, you know. So if
Mhm.
you're in that valley, just keep climbing one step at a time, and I promise you it'll get better. But dude, now fill me in on you, man. How's life with you? How are things going? How's the
Yeah.
half marathon? All these different things.
Yeah, man. It's the normal chaos, but it's all good chaos. Something I've been doing a lot more of is just very intentionally, um, just getting uncomfortable. You know, I think like to your point, like we are in this as well, and nobody's perfect. It's like for the longest time, it's easy to move all the different buckets of chaos around and shift and focus and all the different things. It's seasons of life type of a thing. So really, right now, I'm in a season of life of just intentionally progressing again, and just leaning into not being like, all right, I'm in cruise control and like these areas of life because I'm just doing so much. So very intentionally chasing certain fitness things, which obviously spills in other things. Very intentionally working on myself more, and getting back to that. And it's not that I've ever fallen away from those things. It's just that it's like, all right, well, I'm doing it, so that's good enough, you know. And it's
Yeah.
not like getting in because honestly, guys, and it's one of the things that we're going to talk about today is like you only have so much capacity to give, and when you get to a place of like just giving away so much, like it's inevitable at some point that you're going to be coasting in one or more of those areas, or at least just maintaining that. So I guess for me, the biggest season I'm in is pressing down again,
Mm-hmm.
and just being very intentional with each area of my life and knowing where I'm at with that versus just all the chaos equaling, hey, I'm moving forward, but it's not at the pace that I want to.
Right.
So, just reestablishing standards for myself, reestablishing commitments to what I honestly want and what's important, and then making sure that I'm intentional with attacking those things. I think it's a good season for me because we're in between soccer season. We're kind of in between volleyball season that never really ends. So, the summertime. So the wife and the kids have been home, which has been really nice to just be more intentional with getting time with them. Um, and yeah, I mean, first form stuff is first form stuff. So it's awesome. It's always, that's the root of all the chaos, but it's always a great chaos. So just being very intentional and showing up for me, and other people in every area that I can, which is good.
Dude, I love that. There's something I actually wanted to ask you because, you know, I think this happens to all of us is where we think there's a certain pace that we should be at or we should go at. And it's like, how do you really ever know what that pace is? You know what I mean? Especially when you're working towards a goal, it's like, even if you have goals set, you know, like weeks out or months out, you know, kind of like benchmarkers,
Mhm.
even if you don't hit them, is that a bad thing? You know what I mean? Or it's like, hey, how fast should I be going? You know, because I think a lot of us kind of struggle with the time aspect of those things, like even like a weight loss, you know, where it's like, oh man, I'm only down 3 pounds in a month. It's like, okay, dude, that's good. You know, like people think it's a bad thing, you know, or like,
Right.
hey, I'm only up a pound a month. And it's like, okay, hold on, you know, like it's not a bad thing. But how do we figure out that time? Or like, what does that pace look like to you? Because I think that's something a lot of us struggle with, man.
Hmm. Yeah. I think for me, it's a very real struggle because you always want to have things done faster and you always want to have things done better. So for me, the key is really surrender. This is something that a lot of people don't want to hear, especially if you're at the beginning of a fitness journey or anything else, is that you have to surrender yourself to the concept that like it, there's no end. There is no completion,
Yeah.
right? Which is honestly the very nature of the title of the podcast that we have is like it's a process of becoming. So no matter what area you're in, like let's call it fat loss, cool. Well, let's say that you get to your goal. Well, eventually then that becomes a different goal. So, for me on my journey, it was losing all the body fat. Well, shoot, now I feel like I'm too skinny, so I want to put on muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then it was like, all right, put on muscle, but I also put on some fat. So I want to cut some of that fat. So then, the goal constantly changes. So for me, it's surrendering yourself to the idea that this doesn't ever end, and there's always going to be something to do, right? Which I think is until you surrender yourself to that and get very real with that with yourself, or at least for me, once I got very real with that, it was like, all right, well, then you just have to learn how to detach and learn how to just control the anxiety of like, all right, there's more that I need to do. Well, there's not always there's always going to be more.
Right.
But instead of focusing on the more, well, what can you do better? Right? Whether that's time management, whether that's detaching, whether that's being more intentional, whether that is, all right, well, I've been grinding really hard and having all this anxiety trying to grow this area of my life. And I've inadvertently, subconsciously let these areas of my life suffer a little bit, right? So then it's this detaching, it's looking at the bigger picture and what's important to you right now. Is it important that you hit that faster, or is it important that you just show up your best and do that every single day and actually slow down? And for me, once I started realizing that, it's which had probably been about three months ago is when I realized I was getting out of balance. It's like, all right, well, I know how to do it. I'm just going to slow down. I'm going to detach. I'm going to look at what is important from a priority standpoint. And it's difficult in my sphere because everything kind of is a priority. So it's like, all right, well, which one am I going to intentionally give more energy to?
Right.
And then quite honestly, which is a lot of people, because everyone's going to say, oh, everything's a priority. I get it. It's looking at, all right, well, which one do I want to intentionally give more energy to right now? And then learning to detach, taking care of yourself, all the things we talk about, so that you can show up and give your best to each one, knowing that, all right, this is the one that I'm intentionally, I can't drop kind of thing. So, yeah, there is no right or wrong answer. It ebbs and flows. Some people, it's a season of life. Some people, it's like that is your entire life. But you just got to start looking at what's actually important, what things aren't important that I'm giving all this time, energy, and effort to that is not yielding the return that I'm looking for.
Mm.
Like
See, yeah,
you can only drive a car so fast. Like you can mash the pedal as hard as you want, but it's not going to go faster. You just got to realize that. And then, okay, cool. Well, if it's not going to go faster, what am I doing? What's the positives and the negatives? Well, here's the negatives. I'm burning myself out. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm not taking care of me. I'm going to detach. I'm still going to give it maximum amount of effort to keep that moving. But now I have all this extra energy to give to other things.
I like that. There's like there's two concepts within that, right? It's like this slow down piece,
Mhm.
and I know it sounds counterintuitive sometimes, but the reason the slow down piece is there is to kind of help you just like really take a look at the landscape of where you're at. But then
Yeah.
there's also that like speed up piece where like that's the momentum, right? And I think you can kind of have both within the journey. You know, and I don't know if I'm not a car guy, you know, so I'm not like a race car or NASCAR or Formula One or anything like that. But I feel like, you know, when you're on the straights, you're like, you're able to pick up the momentum. And then, you know, once you hit those curves, it's like, oh, I need to slow down to make sure I'm still on the path, you know, and I kind of think life is a lot that way too, you know, or even maybe when you run, you know, like a lot of people do, like run the straights, walk the curves. And I think in life you do that more times than not. And there's some times where you're going to be able to just kind of really keep going, right? Where that's like the momentum piece. But with any journey, like even I remember, you know, the mental aspect of it, like whenever I started getting into the mindset piece, the first couple of months was really like it was doing it often, but it was more so like, okay, how am I doing this? How does it feel? You know, and am I getting into the right things? Am I thinking the right thoughts? It was more so like minute per minute auditing. And then once I got the flow of it, it was kind of like, okay, it's just repetitive. Now just keep going, just keep doing it. You know, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Where like you're in that season of life now where it's, hold on, let me just backtrack. Okay, let me set the foundation again. Okay, now let me building on it,
Oh
right?
yeah. That's it.
And I think that's important for all of us, man, because you know I think we try to think there's only one way, you know, whether it's this way or that way, and it's like no, it's kind of a combo of both. You just have to realize like, okay, again, auditing yourself, I think it kind of comes back to because when you can audit yourself, you can start looking at where you're at. You know, especially it's like when you're a parent, when you got work going on, when you're juggling a lot of things, which is
Mhm.
going to be the title of this podcast. And I'm good at juggling, not with
Yep.
my hands, with my feet. You know, you might be really good at juggling with your hands.
I
But there,
can't. I'm not coordinated enough. It's weird.
yeah. Well, dude, it's tough. You know,
It
like it
is.
really is tough.
My brain
Um,
doesn't comprehend. I'll just tell you where I'm at. Like you ever be in a parking garage, like the ones that like have the different ramps?
oh yeah, yeah,
I have no fucking concept of how they work. I cannot figure it out in my brain. I'm like, I just don't understand how these work. That's why my brain can't juggle because I'm like, it's just the connection doesn't happen. It's
yeah,
weird.
yeah. You're the
Yeah.
guy that
To
has to
your
follow the
point,
signs.
I think the way that I always like, there's a couple of different ways that I describe this with people that I work with. Is number one, it's juggling. It's spinning plates. right? And it's true in life. And one of the things I said when I was kind of explaining what I've done and how I process things is it's the intentional part, right? So you think about like if you have a stick, right, and you have these plates spinning on it, you've seen those circus performers. Well, the plates are spinning. That doesn't mean that you have to have all the plates spinning super fast, right? So maybe right now I'm focusing more on family and that plate's spinning super fast. Cool. That doesn't mean that I let my job plate stop spinning. It's just not
Right.
spinning at top speed anymore. That doesn't mean that I'm letting my fitness or my personal development or whatever, insert anything that is important in your life. Those plates don't ever stop spinning. I'm just intentionally saying, okay, I'm going to spin this plate faster, right? And then this plate over here. Or to your analogy, it's the juggling, right? And something I read, and I think it's in the book People by You. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember exactly what book I read it in, but they talk about juggling balls, right? Which is going to be the title of the podcast, Juggling Balls, because it's funny. We're just teenage
We're
boys,
good at that. Yeah, we're good at that.
right? But like your family ball, you have a family ball, a fitness ball, a personal development ball, you got a work ball, you have a like whatever, insert all the balls. Well, cool. If you drop the work ball, that ball is made out of rubber. It's going to bounce back, right? But the one ball that's not rubber is your family ball. Or at least for me, that's the one that's not rubber. So everybody has their own. That one's made out of glass. And if you drop that one, it's going to break. So there is no option to drop it. So I'm going to intentionally, very much intentionally pay more attention to that ball, but I'm still juggling the other ones. They're still not hitting the ground, or if they do, it's okay. But the key there is intentionality. Is most people they create a lot of anxiety in their life, or even I've created anxiety in my life by thinking like, all right, I got to keep all these balls juggling, or I'm going to focus more on this one, but I don't intentionally say, okay, well that means that I'm not going to focus as much on this one.
Right.
And then for me, what that looks like, just like as an example, is like, all right, well, I'm going to make sure I leave work by 6 o'clock
Mm-hmm.
so I can be home to prioritize my family. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to do my best between 8 o'clock and 6 when I get there. I'm going to grind my ass off. And that only means that I'm going to be better in that time because I'm like intentionally not giving that one more time. I'm giving it less than what I would, but I'm going to do the best I can while with the time that I'm giving it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
just the
I
intentionality
like that.
piece is
Well, it's kind of boundaries, right? Like I think intentionality, a good way to do it too is, and what you're talking about is like the boundaries, where
yeah,
it's, like there's always more that could be done and really in every area, but it's setting those boundaries and each day is going to look a little bit different, right? It's like on the weekends, like, hey, maybe you got a stressful job and you got so much going on. It's like, okay, hey, if you have to work, like you have to get something done, hey, go in the office super early, get it done. Cool. Now that boundary, at 10 a.m., I'm done. I'm going home with the family, right? I'll pick up the
yeah,
next day.
yeah,
And so with intentionality, I think there's that piece of boundaries that a lot of people don't tie into those two.
yeah.
Where even boundaries within a relationship or boundaries within, your work or working out or whatever the case may be,
Mhm.
their boundaries are equivalent to not equivalent, but they're part of intentionality
Yep.
because you have to set those to be able to pour into each every area how you're supposed to, right?
Mhm.
And one thing I wanted to ask you and dive a little bit into this, and we have, but when you mean intentionality or when you talk about intentionality, like what does that look like for you, right? Like, you could use the example of family, you can use the example of working out, but like, what does that mean? Like
Mhm.
for someone to understand it and grasp it, that might hear that word or they feel like they're being intentional. Like, what's a good way to know they're intentional?
Yeah, so I think you kind of nailed it there with the idea of boundaries, right? Because for me, that was what was driving a lot of the stress and anxiety for me. And this isn't like if I have people that listen that communicate with me through text or DMs or whatever, I don't want that to stop.
Right.
It's always going to be there. But the thing that was getting to me was when Kim and the girls were in Pennsylvania. Um, I just didn't stop working, like which I knew was going to happen, and I intentionally was like, all right, But it gets to the point where like I'm like being constantly um I don't want to say needed, but like it's just a boundary thing for me. It's like the text messages always come, the DMs are always there, Facebook messenger DMs are always there, internal messages are always there, group messages are always there. And like for me, I just wasn't shutting off the boundary of like, all right, I'm just going to answer these messages. And it was the constantly being needed thing that just drove a ton of anxiety for me. So where intentionality came in for me was number one, setting those boundaries. It's like, all right, I have this boundary in place. I'm not going to answer these messages after this time because that's family time. And for a while, I go through seasons of this where I'll be really, really good with it. And then, okay, well, we're in a different season of life, or there's more stuff and there's changes and shifts. So I need to pay a little bit more attention and be more prompt at getting back to certain things. But when there's 17 different platforms that everything's always coming in at all times, plus text messages, it gets to be overwhelming. So intentionality for me, number one, is setting boundaries with stuff. It's like, all right, time wise, this is how I'm going to protect my time, right? This time is specifically for family. This time is specifically for workouts, where if I'm working out, that is what I'm doing. I'm not answering emails in between sets. I'm not answering texts between sets. I'm working out. Right. So the second part of it is being very intentional with timing of things and then sticking to that routine. So it's like, all right, an example of when it was out of balance for me was like, all right, well, I'm gonna wake up and work out, right? And then I would oversleep. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll work out at night. And then this throws everything off. So it's like, no, this is what I'm going to do, and that's how I'm going to do it. And then just making that choice based off of the time frame so that it doesn't steal time from something else. Because at the end of the day, you work inside of an envelope of time that literally it doesn't change, and you only have so much. And again, that's the capacity piece that I was talking about. And then when you start not keeping those promises to yourself, whether it's a boundary, whether it's a commitment that you made in the time frame, that screws everything up. The third thing is I'm very intentional about the plan that I have with things. So it's setting a boundary and then, adhering to that, holding that standard, setting a time for things like, all right, this is my workout time. This is my work time. This is uh, my family time, and then obviously some more work time after that. Then the last piece is having an exact plan of what I'm going to do inside of those times. Right. So for me, it's like, all right, this is the workout time. It's not that I'm just going to go work out. Like, this is the workout that I'm doing, and it's going to happen that way. When I'm at work, these are the three things that if I achieve these things today, that's a win. Right. And then dealing with all the chaos that comes amongst that. But those things are getting done. Family time, it's like, hey, these are the conversations I'm going to have, and these are the things I need to stay up to speed on. These are the things that I need to know moving forward for tomorrow or for the end of the week or for sports or whatever it is. So it's really just getting intentional with not just, hey, these are all the things that I have to do, but how am I doing them? Am I protecting things? Am I doing them at a certain time? And then what am I doing inside of those? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. The second thing when you were talking about, I, a good way I think about it is energy.
Mm-hmm.
Where energy or focus, however you really want to, narrow that down or reframe it, right? But like I think about energy, it's like, what are you giving your energy to within the plan or the time that you've set for X action, right? And another thing too, because I think this is something also that just to get ahead of, right? Even though you have this plan, it doesn't always go as planned, right? There's a funny thing, and I don't know where this is from, but we have a plan and God laughs, so even when you have this perfect plan and structure of what you're going to do, it doesn't always go that way. But I think intentionality, a piece of it is being able to adapt to that, right? And adapt to that in a positive way where you're not just getting mad, like, oh man, I didn't get to the store today, even though I told myself I would. Like, it's cool, bro. Like, it
Yeah.
happens, like, oh man, I worked out 6 times this week. I missed my seventh. Like, dude, you're good. Like, pull back a little bit. But I think that's something to also throw in there where when you're intentional, it's also being able to shift the balance depending on the day. Now, something I've realized too is if this happens constantly, then maybe look within yourself as, okay, is your plan off? Are you timing things the wrong way? Are you being overzealous? Are you just cramming a lot? Because then it's kind of like one of those things where it's on me a little bit, right? Like, there's going to be certain times where the plan just gets thrown off, but you got to take a step back and look at like how often is that happening? Because if it's not happening often, awesome. If it happens once, you're good. It's kind of like the baseball analogy we use where it's, if you're batting 30%, it's like you're in the Hall of Fame, or another good example of this, especially with diet. I like to throw this out with diet a lot is the 80-20 rule. Not necessarily, I'm not saying it's the key to life, but if 80% of the time you're able to knock out the things that you need to do, maybe 20%, it doesn't happen the way you want to, it's okay, right? You're still winning a lot of those days. And we've talked about the power list too, and this is where I think that plays a big role into it, And also with Josh's plan, I want you guys to realize that with this, he's not saying that 24/7 is taken up, right? He doesn't have 300 different things on his list. It's probably like 4 or 5 personal, 2 to 3 work. Like, it's a small list that it's very obtainable, but it's also challenging enough where he's not just taking the foot off the gas. And then sometimes, like in the last 3 months, right? 3 months ago, you're like, oh, wait, maybe my plan's a little bit off. Let me restructure this. Let me get back into it. And I think it's so important, man. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because social media, the world makes things seem so perfect, but it's not, man. It's not at all, and that should give you a huge sigh of relief that you don't have to be perfect. And part of being perfect is still setting a plan, or not being perfect, is still setting a plan and running through it. And when you have to adapt, you adapt, right? Like that's how I look at being able to really push yourself forward, is even if you can't complete everything or something throws you off your day, that you're still able to take it with a positive attitude, because your mind is so powerful. And to be able to juggle things, this is something we talked about as we were kind of going through how we're going to set this up. But the reason we struggle with juggling, and the reason I've struggled with juggling, is when I look so far ahead. Where if I'm looking, for example, even with like this program, the program actually only gives me my workout for the day and the workout tomorrow, so that the only step I can look at is tomorrow. I can't go 2 months from now and be like, oh, there's part of my program. And even if you do have, a plan set out for 3 or 4 months from now, and it's like, this is how it's going to look like, when you spend time focusing so far ahead, it just becomes so much, and this is part of the thing I wanted to talk about, is you just kind of have to look at what's in front of you. Once you structure out your plan, or even if you just have some things that you want to get done, just look at what's in front of you. And, going back to intentionality, I think that's a huge piece of that. I would add that to your number 4, because I agree with every part of the intentionality pieces that you brought up. Like it's rock solid. But the fourth one would be that, right? Where it's just take it one step at a time. And as cliche as it is, I mean, half marathon, bro. How did you get through that half marathon?
Yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah.
One lap at a time.
Yeah.
Like I ran the first 6 miles turning left because I missed, like, that we had a start time and then a secondary start time like an hour or two later. And I missed the briefing because I just went between. I'm like, all right, well, other people are getting ready to start, so I'm just going to go. So I missed the briefing, but they told us that, hey, you can change directions if you want. So I ran like 5 or 6 miles, and then my left hip just blew up because we're turning left nonstop like a freaking NASCAR. And again, it's like once I did that, I'm like, all right, it's just one step at a time. Both my feet went numb, and I was like, I have to muscle this out. I'm just going to focus on one lap. I'm going to focus on my breathing, my form, everything that I've trained, and then I'm just going to rock and roll. You make a really, really good point with that. And honestly, it's something that I do that I didn't even realize I was doing until you brought it up. And we've talked about it, but it's just setting your intent for each day. The way I look at it from a powerless standpoint is like, all right, I have my morning hours. That is from the time I wake up until the time I go to work. There's certain things that I know I need to get done there. That stuff is for me. Right. And then again, it's like, all right, it could be today, it was a certain set of things. Tomorrow, it'll be a different set of things. Like tomorrow, it'll be a workout. It'll be this, it'll be that, it'll be personal development. But that changes day to day. So at the beginning of every day, or even for me, it's the night before, I set my intent for that time. And then I set my intent for, okay, my work hours. What are the things I need to get done there that facilitate a win? And then while I'm at work, or even the day, like the night before, I'll plan, okay, the morning of, I'll plan, what do I need to accomplish with the family in that box, right? And when you let go of the intention, or to your point, you start thinking too far ahead, then it just builds up chaos. And then what ends up happening when you have that paralysis by analysis, you don't do anything, or you just let your day run you. And then that's where, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster when you're not setting the intent for your day and then being intentional with those time frames.
Yeah, I think the ego gets involved in there,
Oh,
where like our mind wants to know everything ahead of time so that we can like plan for it. When in
yeah.
reality, what happens is exactly what you just said, is the paralysis by analysis, because there's so much that's going on, or there's so much to think about. And we, again, the name of the podcast is exactly what life is. It's like, it's a never ending journey. It's a process of becoming always.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think that there is an end goal, and our mind kind of wants that, wants like a stopping point. And a lot of you guys, most of you guys know what 75 hard is, but if you don't, one of the things, it's a mental toughness program. It's not a challenge. It's something that truly changed your life, right? But something that we've seen, and I know you've seen this, is when people do this, they hit that end goal, which is the 75 days, and then things kind of go back into a slump. And that happens to us more often than not, even outside of that 75 hard program.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I bring this up is because, again, it's to tie our ego into this and something to just look out for, because our ego wants an end goal. And when you're thinking so far ahead, you might be motivated to get to the finish line, but once you're at the finish line, you're just going to stop. But when you take it one day at a time, the finish line is never ending, but it becomes so much easier to digest.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the half marathon you're running, it's a lot easier to digest one step at a time, or hey, run to that sign, or hey, just run this straight, hey, now finish the curve. It's little benchmarks that get you there. It's a lot of us have been out of school for a long time now, but the one thing, when you think about, what if your teacher, told you everything that you're going to do for the whole year and all these different things? I think you'd be more stressed out than, kind of taking it as a semester at a time, or even a class at a time, right? Because when we're kids, we're really just taking it that way. But when you think about a lot, it becomes heavy, you know. And I think that's one of the biggest pieces of juggling life, juggling these balls, is we try to think about, for example, if I have to juggle for a long time, I'm thinking about how long it's going to take compared to just, let me just make sure the ball's in the air, let me sure I catch it. One is way easier to digest than the other. There's and I forgot who's brought this up, but and I don't remember the exact name of the person, but it was a Navy SEAL, and they talk about who makes the cut. At the end of Hell Week, at the end of all the training, all the preparation, like who makes the cut. And the funny thing is, the person that was talking about this, he's like, the people that make the cut aren't the people that are the fastest. They're not the biggest. They're not the strongest. They're not professional athletes. It's the people that just think to their next meal. Like, let me just get to my next meal, and because they're training multiple times a day, right? So, they wake up and the person's like, okay, let me just get to breakfast. Cool. After that, he's like, let me get to lunch. Cool. Let me get to dinner. Cool. Let me get to bed. And that's all they think about for literally the entire way through, which it's not, it's a long program, and the people that struggle are the ones that are thinking about how long it's going to take. They're thinking about all the things they got to do, how much more suffering they have to go through. But the people that succeed only think about the next benchmark, and it's very small. And for anyone that is struggling, and guys, we've struggled with this. This is why we do our best to talk about this and to help you through this process. But just, it really is that true. We have a lot of runner friends, and I mean endurance running friends. 100 milers, 150, like very very long distance people that it's hours on hours on hours. Like, I mean, it's multiple days sometimes, right? Where they're running. But the biggest thing, even when you ask them, it's one step at a time, because it's so much easier to digest that than it is to digest, a whole big thing. And as we're talking about digest, I think analogy for this is like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's a big elephant. If you think about eating the whole thing, it becomes a lot. But if you just focus on one bite at a time, you'll take on more than you could imagine, and it'll happen faster, right? One of my favorite things I used to teach the team, and I even try to tell people this too, even when it's related to other things, but as slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? Because smooth is just, you're taking it slow. And when you think taking it slow, you're like, I'm not going fast enough. But in reality, when you're smooth, it's like flow. And when you're flowing, you're going to get there a lot faster than if you try to just go, 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 and you're thinking about so many different things. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That is like a motto of life for anyone out there that's struggling.
Yeah, the one thing that you said there with the Navy SEALs, and honestly, it correlates to exactly what we're talking about. It's your ability to stay present, and not project yourself to this future place that doesn't really exist. We've talked about that before. But in the Navy SEAL scenario there, the thing that throws a lot of those people off is they think about how much more suffering they have to endure, right? Versus just staying present in this moment right now. And it's like, all right, I'm just going to go from this evolution to this evolution. And it makes sense in life as well. I mean, you can even break that down to a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when I wake up and it's like, all right, these are all the things that I have to do today. Well, cool. Then I'm already thinking about all these other things and I'm not staying present in what I need to do right now. I'm not giving it my best effort. When I'm with my family and I think about all these things that I have to, these deadlines, I have to do this for work, I have to do this. Like, no, as soon as I start thinking that way, I'm no longer present, and it creates the anxiety, and then it diminishes every single experience that I have. So the key to it all, and the intention, the idea of intentionality is honestly just that. Now that we're kind of talking through it,
Mm-hmm.
is just your ability to stay present in the task that you're working on right now. give it your best effort, and then move to the next task. That doesn't mean that you don't lay out your day or lay out your month. And there's nothing wrong with setting quarterly goals and yearly goals. But what you said earlier, it's like now it breaks down specifically to, okay, well, if I'm going to make progress towards that, what do I need to do right now? And one of the things that we talked about, I think it was a podcast I did solo, was the position versus trajectory concept from Atomic Habits. It's
Mhm.
like, all right, well, if there is a dichotomy of that, 'cause it's like I want to focus on being present right now, but not looking solely at my position. It's looking at like, okay, the trajectory of that, which does take a little bit of a forward thinking mindset of like, all right, well, my position right now may not be where I want to be or where I need to be, but if I continue doing this on a day to day basis, where does that put me? Right. So there is that dichotomy of both being present, but also the audit piece, which is a big piece that I've been doing a lot more of recently in my own life, which is I'm going to audit like, all right, well, what trajectory am I on based on the habits and the tasks that I've been doing? What trajectory am I on? Because a lot of people, guys, they look at the trajectory or they look at their forward progress through life of what am I doing? They look at the tasks versus the intangible things of like, all right, well, how am I feeling? Am I being more present? Am I progressing my mindset? Am I making better decisions? Am I thinking about things differently? Are my tendencies changing? Right? That is also a trajectory. So, and it also is a position because if you're looking at that position of like, all right, well, I just ate protein for the last 4 days and I haven't made any progress. Well, cool. But what if you continue doing that for the next 3 weeks
Mhm.
and you do that, right? Or, all right, well, I've been meditating and nothing's changing. Well, are you sure? Because what happens if we project that out over the next 3 weeks, right?
Mhm.
So, from that audit standpoint, that's a great thing to audit is the intangible stuff, not on the position that you're at, but the trajectory that you're on with it.
Dude, okay. So there's a few points I wanted to hit on here. I think it's results based, where we're constantly looking at the result, which is the tangible,
Mhm.
over the, hey, how am I doing? The fact that like I've been on a 4 day streak, that should be one of those things where it keeps you going. That
Mhm.
should be something you're excited about. But instead, we're looking to feel amazing right now, to see the results right now. And it's not going to happen that way
Mhm.
because there's going to be times where you do something great and the result is great, and there's going to be times where you do something and the result's not great. But guess what? The correlation between both of those is you got it done, and it's something you should be happy about.
Mhm.
And within that second piece of what you were talking about with intentionality early on, the power of now. It's a book by Eckhart Tolle, actually. So throwing out a book recommendation here, but that book speaks about that specifically, just being in the present moment and the power it has. And it's something that we lose sight of very often because our brain is constantly moving, and,
Mhm.
and the phones, the so many different things hitting our way from messages to emails to notifications. It throws us off our thinking, and it throws us off the ability to be present where we're
Mhm.
at. And
Yep.
it's something so valuable because being present is really the key to all of it. Again, if you remove the results, which sometimes sounds counterintuitive, but it's not, because the person that will do the best in life is the person that's consistent, not perfect, or
Mhm.
not doesn't have the perfect results, right? Even when I think about like art, or like a Da Vinci, if you look at all of his pieces, I doubt they were perfect, but it's a person that's more consistent with everything.
Mhm.
Mentioning Atomic Habits, there's a great example in there, and I'm pretty sure it's in here. I like because it's been a little bit since I've read the book, but I'm pretty sure it talks about the photographers, right? I'm talking about where like there's two groups,
Yep.
and one group, I don't know how many people in each group, but one group is told to take 100 pictures, right? Take one picture every single day. The other group is told to take one perfect picture, and by the end, let's see who has the better picture. Well, just like what we talked about, the consistency piece is really what matters. The outcome will take care of itself when you're consistent. And guess what group does better? It's the group that took 100 photos, the group that took multiple photos consistently. Because even though their first 80 weren't perfect, the fact that they weren't just looking for the perfect one was the difference of them having the best photo. And the group that took the one photo, they were trying to be so perfect that they didn't take really any photo, right? There wasn't no consistency in there. And so I think that's something that we miss out on, but it's such a simple example to so many different areas of our life.
Yep.
It's like even with parenting, and it might not seem that way because all of us try to be perfect parents, which there's a good reason for it. But consistency is what wins, and it's leading by example that consistently wins. you're not going to always make the right decision. You're not going to always say the right thing, but it's how much do you continue to show up, and I'm not a parent, but it's something when I think about my parents or when I think about Josh, that's the one thing I could see that has led to success, or even the people that I'm close with that have kids, the difference of them. And, I have people that I'm like, you see parenting and it's like, oh man, I wish we would have done that a little bit different. But then you see others where it's like, why are these kids, or why is their family different than these? And I'm not saying one's good or bad, right? Like, yes, I am kind of, like, I'll be honest. Yes, I am a little bit. But the reason is because of the consistency and continually work on themselves, continue to find those things that even though they aren't perfect, they're still trying. Where others aren't trying at all. They're looking for a perfect moment or a perfect thing. And sometimes a lot of what happens over here is the paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
But yeah, I wanted to throw out the power of now, because I think it's such a great concept that it's a great book, but it's a great concept, and it's hard. You're not going to always be present, especially this day and age. It's very difficult. But again, it's working on it, consistently trying to be present. And the more that you work on those things, kind of like, getting in protein, if you've done it for 4 days in a row, okay, what happens when you go 2 months, or even training, or even learning or meditating or whatever the case may be? It's like, continue to do that and it will improve and you will see a difference.
Yep, spot on with that. Something else they talk about in that book, and it's funny, like this is my first time reading Atomic Habits, and I've had that book for 4 or 5 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I've known about it for a very long time. But the reason why I never read it is I was just judging a book by its cover, which is we're told our whole lives not to do.
Unbelievable,
I was
dude.
like, I listened to a podcast and I was like, I need to read that book. And it was like the most profound podcast. I'm like, holy shit. And then I started reading the book and I'm like, this is hands down the greatest book that's ever been written. I mean, it is so phenomenal. But the cool thing of reading through it is like, this is all stuff that you and I have been teaching on. Like, ironically, not that like, hey, I'm better than James Clear, but like everything is energy. And like, this is stuff that I've been teaching on. And then he elaborates on it and gives it a way different meaning, which is very valuable. But uh, one of the things that he talks about in there is the idea of goal setting, right? And most people, they start with a goal, like an outcome that they want to work towards, which allows them to build processes, which then, if they stick to those processes over time, they will wrap their identity up and become that person, right? And the thing that we've talked about and what he talks about in the book is no, like, you need to start with your identity first, right? You wrap your identity up in like whatever the outcome is that you want. So like if your goal is to lose 50 pounds, okay, well, who is that person? Be that person right now, which will allow you to shape the processes. Well, what would that person do? And then which will lead to the outcome that you want, right? So the thing that kind of blends itself to that from a standpoint of the juggling and being intentional is, instead of coming up with an outcome of like, all right, I want to be the best that I can and be the most present that I can, is starting to think of like, all right, well, what does a present that do? Right. Or, being the best leader that I can be at work. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to do all these things, which is going to allow me to become a better leader. It's like, no, like, how does a better leader act?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really flipping that paradigm on its head of like, don't just think of the outcome. Start with, who do you need to be? Who is that person? And then just act as it. Right. So for every area of my life, that's a big thing. Like, after reading through some of that stuff, I was like, all right, I'm going to get back to doing that, because that was one of the pieces that was unintentional. It's like, no, I'm being a great dad. Okay, well, how do I know that? And then I started auditing, well, what would a great dad do in my eyes? What would a great father do? What would a great leader do? What would a great person that focuses on their fitness and physical and progresses that? And the truth be told, when I started auditing that, there was a couple of those areas where I wasn't being my best. Right. And then, granted, I get it. We're always going to be harder on ourselves. Like, to the outside world, I probably was doing pretty good, but for me, it wasn't good enough. So it's just being intentional with auditing that. And then the other part of that is auditing it, is like, actually have those hard conversations with yourself. And for people like you and I, or even some of the people listening, it's like, cool, you're light years away from where you used to be. Is that good enough? And then just have that hard conversation with yourself. But I'm going to make sure I put that book recommendation in the notes, because that book is awesome. Power of Now. You guys definitely need to check that one out. And then, honestly, if you've never read Atomic Habits, you need to read that and actually apply it. That book will change your life.
Man, it actually blows my mind that you haven't read that up until this point. It really
Do
does.
you want to hear? You want to hear something crazy about how everything's energy?
Okay, let's hear it. I'm ready.
So the one day I was driving to work and I'm like, all right, I want to listen to an MLF podcast, but I've listened to all of his recent stuff. So I was like, I just grabbed Spotify and flicked it and scrolled, and then I stopped my finger on it, and it was on the James Clear episode that they recorded during COVID. I was like, all right, James Clear, cool. This guy knows something. Everybody loves his
Mhm.
books. So I'll listen to it. Within like 3 minutes, I was like, holy shit, this is unreal. So later that day, I told TJ, I was like, and I think my exact words were, hey, bro, I'm going to send you this podcast. It's going to blow your mind. And he was like, he goes, dude, you know what pisses me off? Like, just kind of an aside, it was his mental process working. I was like, what's that? He goes, that it took me this long to read Atomic Habits. And I had started it literally 2 days prior. And
No way.
I'm like, bro, you're not even going to believe what I was about to say.
No way.
So, yeah, we had both exactly done the same thing. I've known about the book for a really long time, just kind of judged it because we're just like, whatever. And yeah, it was mind blowing. So, we both ended up reading it. He finished it already. I've been going back and forth between 3 different books. It's taken me a little bit longer, but yeah, phenomenal book. So I can't. It pisses me off that I
Wow.
waited this long to read it because I could have. But at the same token, we have been teaching a lot of the stuff from that book, kind of because everything's energy for a very long period of time. So
Man, that's so funny. It
yeah,
really is, to your point, like the energy at work. And man, it's another funny piece to this too is if you've ever Googled like what are the top, person development books or like with anybody, even if you YouTube it, dude, Atomic Habits is like top two for most of every list, like every list. And it's funny because I get it, right? Like the actual title of it can seem a little bit different, or you're like, it's probably just something simple. But when you dive into it, it's just like, wow, he puts everything that I think when you think about energy, when you think about like the daily habits, when you think about identity, like everything into one. And it makes a difference, man. And I understand why that book is very, very highly looked at or valued.
yep,
It's funny because I think I picked it up for the first time, man, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And it's something I've gone back to a few times. I wish I read that book more often, honestly. But it was a book that I read coming here because I knew some things were off, like kind of what we talked about. And I was like, okay, I think I gotta dive back into this. And then it was just it's mind blowing. So if you guys haven't read that, I would read that. But another step to this, I would also highlight certain things. And even if you have to read 5 pages, like twice to get to your 10 pages, if that's your goal for the day, but I would read multiple of those pages because it just to make it stick a little bit more. And once it
mhm.
sticks, it's a lot easier to carry on. But yeah, dude, that's funny, man. It's very mind blowing. But it's also cool that whenever you flick and then you hit and it's like, oh my god, there it is. But yeah,
Yeah,
James Clear is ahead of his time for sure, man. Like he's
yeah.
definitely
He was
recommend that book.
the way he thinks is just amazing. But it's the testament, guys, that nothing in life is by accident. Like one of the things that you said earlier, and when we were talking about your experience and your journey of going out to Colorado, and then you made the mention during this podcast of like, hey, like sometimes we make plans and God laughs about it. Like that's kind of what I was thinking when you were talking about what you wanted to do out there. It's like,
Mhm.
does that mean that going out there is a complete waste of time because your plans didn't line up? No, God just had a different plan for you. And sometimes, guys, like we fight that,
Mhm.
like for me, sometimes I'll fight that if like you end up with an injury or something that sets you back a little bit. But maybe that's God's way of saying like, hey, you need to slow down and be more intentional, or you need
Mhm.
to shift your focus over to this area of your life. You know, little things, and it's just, again, it's learning to be more intuitive and attentive to the energy. It's the meditation, it's the taking the 10 minutes a day to yourself and doing those
Mhm.
things, because a lot of times, like, you'll get beat over the head with these signs that you need to do something, and then it's not until something like God will be like, all right, I'm gonna allow this to happen, so it actually slows you down. And like the thing that I heard a story a long time ago, it's kind of like it's a parable slash like joke situation, but it's like this area flooded, and this family was like praying for God, hey God, save us, send us a sign, um, save us from this flood. And the flood continues rising, and the boat goes past. Like, hey, you guys got to get in the boat. And they're like, no, God's going to take care of us. And then the water keeps rising, and God sends an airplane. Hey, you need to jump in. You're going to drown. Now God's got our back. And another, it keeps rising, helicopter. Same things. Like, now God's going to save us. He's got our back. And then next thing you know, they die, get to heaven. It's like, God, I thought you were going to save us. He's like, dude, I sent you three signs, like three
Yep.
people to save you, and you were just such an idiot. You weren't seeing them.
Man.
So it's a testament to like what we do in life. Like, and if you're not slowing down, if you're not being intentional about spending that time with yourself, or even whatever you believe in from a higher power, um, you're missing out. I mean, because we have input all the time. And I honestly think that a lot of that is by design to keep us
Mhm.
from spending time with ourselves, being more intuitive. I mean, look at anxiety, it's on an all time high. Look at all these depression and all these things. Like, cool, well, detach from the stuff that's causing it and realize that being on or being completely bombarded with being told who you are, what you are, how to think, why to think, what to think, all these things, it's not helping. So you got to detach from that. And a part of that is just, being real with yourself with those audits and just freaking detaching from it. And that's probably something for you that you've noticed that's helped a ton, just detaching from social media.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, it's weird because, it's and we talked about this. It's something I've done for a long time. And it's not that I hate social media. It's really not because a, I enjoy a lot of it because I surrounded myself with more of the positive things. And you know this from even the posts that you make. You're not making posts where it's like, oh, look at me, I'm cool, right?
Yeah.
But it's something that I definitely think it's still a part of me because there's a lot of things that I still want to do, right? Like the trick shots, the mindset, the training, all those things. But it took me removing myself to realize how important those things are, but how also I wanted to go about them. And that story that you mentioned, I think we've mentioned that story before, and it's actually something my mom used to tell me all the time.
Mhm.
And I love it because it's a simple way of putting that God gives you what you need, not what you want. And oftentimes we miss the sign because we're so distracted or we want it to be a certain way. And even for me, I told you as we were talking about this that my goal hasn't changed. Just the direction of how it's supposed to go has definitely changed.
Yep.
Because I'm saying what I value most in life. And the cool part for me is these are all things I felt I've always known and they've always been a part of it, but it took me removing myself from those things unintentionally to see how much they actually matter to me and what I want out of life. Like, man, you start to realize like who's really in your corner. You start to realize like who really matters. You also start to realize like what you want to prioritize in life and what you should have been. And to your point, it's not a waste by any means. Going out here, I left it very open book because, I knew I needed to challenge myself and I knew this was going to be a great way to challenge myself. But what I didn't know is that it was going to open more things about me that I needed to work on myself, but also really look at the direction of life that I want to take these next steps and, the things I really want out of life. And most of those things haven't changed. The direction of it has changed, or the little pieces that I didn't think about have really opened up, right? Like, the people that matter to me the most is very important because one thing I realized, and I didn't share this with you yet, but I remember I went to visit St. Louis a couple times, and I got to see my cousins that I haven't seen in a long time. And man, seeing them grow up big, one's actually loves Joe Rogan, and he's like 14. And dude, it just like the conversation I was able to have with him just blew my mind. And I was like, man, I should have been there more, but I let other things take over, and even let the wrong people, spending time with the wrong people or whatever the case may be. And it just opened up a lot of things that I'm like, okay, if I it opened up a lot of ideas, it opened up a lot of opportunities, and it really opened up a lot of who I am and what I value the most. So like to your point, man, it really wasn't a waste. And I
Yep.
and I love the every experience of it. And this is just the beginning of what's to come. And you guys will know soon because there's a plan in play, somewhat of a plan, but I won't say anything until it comes down to it. And obviously Josh knows, no one else really knows, but we're gonna keep it that way. So he pinky promised me. So I'm gonna hold you to that, bro. That's like the highest honor of promises, all right?
I don't even know what you're talking about,
All
man.
right, good. That's a true friend right there. Yeah, I like it.
Yep. Well, guys, bringing this kind of full circle, we covered a lot today, but really the main thing that we wanted to hit on with you guys is for those people that are out there that just feel like you're drowning because you just got so much going on, is maybe it's important for you and it's time for you to just stop down and take an audit of like, are you actually being intentional? Are you in control of what's happening? Because you have the ability to control it, right? Number one, you have the ability to attach whatever meaning you want to circumstances, situations, and experiences. We talk about that all the time. Number two, you get to decide what action you take. And one of those actions that you can take is like just detaching a little bit and stop trying to fill the gaps of your day and your life with those audits.
Mhm.
Right? Like, all right, cool. I got a few minutes. I'm going to audit this. No, like be very intentional with your audit. Like set time aside and think about like what Dino had said is like, all right, well, coming out here, things didn't go the way that I wanted them to or had originally planned. So it forced me to go internal a little bit and really truly figure out what I want. that wasn't you just filling the gaps of your day thinking about that. Like you probably spent some good time meditating on it, journaling on it, and you spent time figuring it out. Whereas most people, they don't do that. Okay, now take that same principle and boil that down from a day to day, and then I mean sometimes even within the day. It's like, all right, well, shoot, this is what my original plan was for these hours. Well, that went to shit. So what am I going to do to salvage it, or do I call it a wash and then just build it again tomorrow? So
Hmm.
it's just being more intentional and controlling your day, knowing exactly what you want to do, what you need to do, having a plan for it, and then having a contingency. It's simple stuff, but we all have so much going on, and the thing that if I could really give anything to you, it's understanding that it doesn't ever slow down. I had a conversation with a newer mom, and she's like, man, it's just chaos right now. I'm like, get rid of the right now part. It doesn't ever stop. You
Hmm.
just learn to adapt to it, and you learn to get better. And one of those keys, again, is the intentionality. It's the detaching and slowing down a little bit. You got to slow down sometimes to speed up, and just adding more onto your plate because you think you need to. That's not the solution. Obviously, that's going to continue happening, but you got to really audit what's important, what's not important. Is this moving me towards the trajectory and the life that I want? Is it vertically integrated? Or do I need to start saying no to certain stuff? When the opportunity is there to not say no to things because it's just stuff that you need to do for family, friends, work, chaos, all that. Cool. Just start putting it into different buckets and being intentional about the buckets that they're in and how much time and energy you're going to give. And then also the seasons of life you're in, whether those plates are spinning fast or spinning slow. Just be intentional. Okay, well, I have to focus on this a little bit more, so this is going to suffer a little bit. I'm going to put my fitness on cruise control. Still going to do it, but it's going to be on cruise control because I can't. I only have so much capacity to give out. So my
Yeah,
input.
I think you nailed everything, man. The last thing I would throw in there, and we didn't touch on this as much in this episode, but be gratitude, right? Like be grateful for what you have, and even within the chaos, be grateful for the chaos.
Yep.
And even as you audit, if there's certain things that you're not happy about, be grateful that you were able to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's easy to beat ourselves up if we're not doing the things that we think we should be doing or something doesn't look exactly how we want it to. Be grateful for those opportunities because there's an opportunity there to get better. Be grateful for the opportunity that you're spinning multiple plates because you are able to spin them. You are able to withhold those things and you are capable of making those things great, right?
Mm-hmm.
So never lose sight of that because that's a big piece of it too. And like Josh said, it's never ending, but always remember to be grateful for the fact that you are even allowed or been given those plates because
Mm-hmm.
that means you are meant for something. You are able to take those on and make something great out of those,
Yep.
and that's another big piece, the energy that you put in, whether it's, into the people in your life, into the areas of your life, or even into yourself, it matters a lot. So not only just be present, but also be positive. And I know that's a very, general term to put things in. But again, it's really replace it with be grateful and be happy about the opportunities that you've been given, even though it might seem like chaos and it might seem to continue as if it's chaos all the time. Be grateful for those because once you are, it'll open up a new way of looking at those things, but it also makes you appreciate your space and your area and the present now that you are in. So
Yep.
that'd be my final wrap up there.
Yeah, it's such a huge, huge point, and I'm glad you wrapped it up with that because everything is energy, and I've told that to certain people. They start getting a negative thing about how much they have on their plate, and I'm like, hey, listen, that this is what you prayed for, right? Like when you were back there and you didn't have this is what you prayed for. So you got to protect that energy. Be very careful of the energy. And again, that comes down to just slowing down, detaching a little bit, and just seeing things and looking at things. It's kind of like the idea of a painting, right? When Van Gogh or whoever it is creating a masterpiece, they're so close to it that they're creating it. They don't realize what masterpiece they're building because it's stroke by stroke. And it's like, man, I've been doing this for a long time. I want to switch to a different color or a different medium or a different format or whatever. It's not until they detach and step back that they realize, holy shit, this is amazing. Right. So it's a very important thing to slow down, to speed up. And so many people create this illusion in their life that if they slow down, they're going to go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like even to that point, like a really, really close friend of mine, we've set up accountability for taking care of ourselves every single day. We have to do 3 things every day that take care of us. Because again, when you're going real fast and when you have these big life goals and you have all these plates that you're juggling or spinning and balls that you're juggling, like it's easy to put yourself on the back burner, and that only diminishes everything that you're doing. So gratitude is huge.
Nailed it, my man. That's it. I think
I
I
love
think
it.
that was a good way to wrap this all up, and I think it was a good
Yeah.
episode at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, you know the drill. If you know somebody needs to hear this, please share the show. Talk to them about it. Tell them what you gain benefit from. And stay tuned for some more exciting, fun things to come.
And the last thing I'll leave you guys with, and something we need help with. If you guys can literally, just give us a rating, review, leave us a question, just something. It'll help the podcast grow. I know you guys most likely have listened to other podcasts and they say this, but it's true. And a good way to get this out to even people that you might not have in your life that need it right now, it will get it to people that you didn't even know about that can help. And that's our whole goal here. So if you guys could do that, we'd appreciate it. And of course, if there's anything we could do better, anything we could talk about, really, we'd love to hear you guys' feedback. We're always open because at the end of the day, we do this for you. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving us time out of your day, and for allowing us the space to be able to speak about these things and hopefully help you out as well, because this helps us out as well too. So thank you guys. We love you guys. And anything else, Josh?
That's it, man.
All right, sweet guys. Until next time. Peace.